As 2022 comes to a close, I want to reflect on all the games that I personally played and provide my thoughts and rating on each of them. I'll keep this brief since I already made an entire video about my opinion, but this is bad. With Blizzard straight up deleting Overwatch 1, this is just an overhaul update that they're advertising as a brand new game to entice those who have quit to return and check it out. Fans are excited because they've been stuck in this toxic relationship for years where the only thing to look forward to is new cosmetics that come with events. Tweaking current mechanics and adding some new game modes is not worth the wait, but fans are so depraved that they'll take anything. Fans of Blizzard are in an abusive relationship. You should not support companies that treat you like this. I only played the beta, but the whole season pass, map pool, character change situation just sounds miserable. I also have a full review of this on my channel. To briefly reiterate my feelings, I didn't find it scary, the objectives were confusing, and the gameplay felt tedious. Bitch, what the f was this unfinished bullshit? Obviously it's changed since the trailer, but this was such a buggy disaster. Looking past the bugs, I did enjoy playing the main story, however, trying to get all the endings took triple the amount of time of the main story. Without saving, it was a painful disaster. I can't count the number of times I had to play laser tag because my final save had me technically not know who Vanny was because I got the camera, so any ending that involved knowing who she was, I had to go and replay laser tag just to figure that out. With less bugs and being able to save the game while getting different endings, this game probably would have been an 8 or 9 out of 10. And I believe that they may have later added one save station if you're trying to get all the endings, but that didn't exist when I played it. This game had a little bit too much for me. The controls were annoying, the instructions were confusing, and the tutorial took like an hour for me. With that being said, I played this when I was still very new to VR, and this game has a non-VR version that may be better. It just had too many mechanics to handle for me personally. I really don't like this game. First of all, the movement is just not for me. I realized that my favorite VR games are the ones where you don't move or you lean to move. Using a controller to move is just not my favorite. This game definitely caused the most VR-related injuries, which can be expected when you're swinging around weapons. Oh! I also couldn't beat the first level. It's so tiring, I just felt like it would never end. I really liked this series, but was so disappointed with the Nurse chapter. I really hated their mechanics and didn't feel like I ever figured out the strategy to beat them. I just used brute force until I eventually did it. The second section is even worse with the traps, and to put salt on the wound, the game crashed when I had 30 shards left, and I could not mentally handle redoing that, so I never finished it. This was my first Metroid game, and I played it because I thought it looked cool, but I know that a lot of people have been hoping for this game for years. To those people, I'm sorry. To begin with the positives, I love the design of the Emmys, and that was the main selling point for me. I felt like the world building was very nice and the visuals were great. I did find the overall plot a little confusing though. Now, I played this game on normal mode, but struggled a lot. It was extremely difficult to get past some bosses, and backtracking was frustrating at times. I played about half this game last year and then ended up dropping it, and when I came back this year, I liked it a lot better. I didn't get lost as much and didn't find any of the bosses unbearably difficult, so I'm not sure what happened, but my rating last year and this year would have been significantly different, so I'm just going to split the difference. I know everyone's playing this game for the lore, but unfortunately the story sucks. In all seriousness, I do think that it's an engaging way to exercise. The different moves, workouts, I don't know what you call it, they do get repetitive, and the game is unbelievably long, which in this case probably is a good thing, but it always has the vibe that you're close to the end, then you just get a new world. This game did send me to the ER and urgent care, so I'm gonna have to reduce some points for that though. I started out really liking this game. I loved A Way Out and was excited to see what they would do with this next concept. I thought the environments were utilized very well and they did a great job of world building. I did feel that stages went on for a little too long and that the game itself dragged on for a bit too much though. My main issue with this game is the horrible story pacing. Cody and May hate each other for basically the entire game, and even during the final chapter they argue. It felt like they kinda just decided how many levels to make and the writing did not follow. Homegirl just harmonized for 15 seconds and their marriage was saved. I wish there were more subtleties or something that indicated that they were growing closer, but I really didn't see any of that, which feels like the entire point of the game. The focus is your relationship, but nothing really develops. They left me feeling like they got past an argument, but they wouldn't live happily ever after. They kinda are just lucid and will get divorced in a few months. Also, these people destroyed so many lives around them and didn't seem to learn any kind of lesson. They just hurt others for self-gain, which felt like a theme that didn't fit into the plot at all. It didn't feel like they were humanizing them or anything, just that these people are menaces to everything around them for selfish reasons. I never felt like either got the point the book was trying to make and just wanted to get a step closer to becoming human instead of actually understanding each other. The style of this game is probably something that you'll either really like or hate depending on what type of games you enjoy. I enjoy management sim games, but this one has a lot of thinking involved. And I know that, again, is going to be either a pro or con depending on what you like. Other than that, their style and UI are really clean and it's a fun game to hop on from time to time. I'm gonna be honest, I feel generous with the rating I give this game. I know a lot of people say it's their favorite Resident Evil game. I really didn't love it. My main issue with it was the non-stop fighting. I felt like room after room was full of enemies and the slow combat really got boring. I find the story interesting, but the game went on for too long. I mentioned in my gameplay that I feel like the chapters didn't help me with the length because I felt like I needed to finish the chapter I'm on to exit the game. I know that all I need to do is find a typewriter, but it feels weird to quit partway through, so there definitely were times where I wanted to stop but made myself keep going. I personally feel like a lot could be cut out and still feel the same. I also just want to be exponentially clear that this is my personal experience and I'm not saying it's bad or deserves hate. If you love this game, I'm really happy for you. I just wish I did too. I do plan on playing the remake and I'm excited to see what changes they decide to make. If you've ever played Fruit Ninja at an arcade, this is it but cooler. It's easy to play for as short or long as you want, which I've learned to really appreciate from VR games. There's a few different modes, but you kinda just do the same thing over and over again, but it's a fun game, and it's a good place to start if you just got a headset. The game that you buy is terrible. It doesn't have a lot of songs, and most of them are generic EDM tracks that don't feel fun to play. That being said, the mods for this game are amazing and make Beat Saber one of my favorite VR games. Being able to slice blocks to the beats of songs that I know is extremely fun. The simple mechanics allows for longer play sessions without getting tired, and the format of it again enables you to play for as short or long as you want. So I'm not exactly sure how to rate this since I can't ignore the bland game that you're paying for, but it's also unfair to exclude the mods from the rating since the main ones are free and pretty easy to add. So I'm going to split the difference and give it a 7 out of 10, but keep in mind that the potential of this game with mods is higher than that. I feel weird excluding this game, but I really didn't play it that much. I've yet to actually play the campaign, but I had a fun time with the mission mode. I had no idea what was going on, but that just added to the chaos and resulted in a really fun video. I did notice though that there are still glitches, which is a little weird for how old but popular the game is. Since this game is newer and I do recommend it, I won't get too detailed in the story. This game had a bumpy release with every version except for the PS5 having stuttering issues. I was planning on playing it on PC, but after the reviews decided to play the game on PS5, which I'm really happy about. I always prefer my games on PC, but it was a really cool experience on console. There were also cool features that can't happen on a computer. For example, you get radio communications throughout the game and the voices come out of your controller, which I thought was a really cool touch. Also, when you upgrade your melee weapon, the controller vibrations made swinging the new one feel heavier. Those little touches just really added to my experience. Now getting into the actual game, I did enjoy it. I do agree with the popular opinion that the first few hours are the best, but there was never a time where I felt bored with the game. I did see complaints that the game was too short, but I really disagree. The game is set up so that there is a lot of exploring opportunities. That mixed with difficult sections resulted in playing for about 15 hours, which is my personal sweet spot for a story game. Speaking of the exploration in this game, there's a bunch of extra paths to go, some resulting in loot and others not. The additional paths are so extensive that most of the time, it's difficult to tell where the main objective is, and as someone who wants to explore all the optional rooms before advancing, that got a little annoying at times. The story I think was really good, the graphics were amazing, the death animations were gritty, and the enemies were scary. The game also does a great job of setting up dead bodies that tell a story without any words. They give you enough detail to show something horrifying occurred, and leave you to imagine the details. With the story, they did this cool rising tension and universal distrust because everyone that you meet is in a maximum security prison. Even the character that you play as seems to have a sketchy past, and I really wish that they pushed that further, but they kinda just gave up on it a little bit halfway through the game. The gameplay mechanics are iffy. I don't know if it's because I'm not used to using a controller, but some combat aspects were annoying. For example, if you're switching guns and press the aim button before you're done, it just cancels the switch. So in many combat situations, I would nervously aim the gun just to find out I'm still holding the one with no bullets. Just not letting me cancel the switch would have been so much better. Also, for the first bit of the game, you basically only do melee combat, but there's a certain point where enemies mutate and you basically have to shoot their chest. So literally there is a room in the game, and once you enter, you never use your melee weapon again except for fighting one boss 2 separate times. It felt a little weird how much you rely on your melee weapon, then pretty much never use again. There also was a bar that showed how much battery you had for a power, but it worked very strangely. When you weren't using it, for some reason it always showed 1 bar, and you had to actually activate the power to see your charge. That isn't game breaking, it was just a weird observation that confused me when I first started. Something that no one seems to talk about so far is the worst section of this game by far is the stealth one. You have a pretty long time where the enemies are blind but not really, and you have to crouch walk for over an hour. The mechanics of the blind enemies are so bad, I'm sorry. So this makes no noise for them, but going from crouching to standing alerts all of them of your location. And once they know where you are, you can't lose them. Conceptually, it was cool, but when executed, it fell short and went on for a little too long. Now, one part that felt really weird is that you have this extremely difficult fight, for me at least, where you have to kill this mini boss, which has a lot of health, but kills you in 1 hit. After you do this, there are 3 more times within a few hours where you have to fight it. And it gets easier each time that you do it, but it's annoying every time. Also, its design is this really cool mutant monster, but seeing 4 identical ones really dulls the uniqueness. Even if their mechanics were the exact same, some visual differentiation would have been nice. Now, the ending. They were just screaming in your face that they want to make a sequel, and I'm fine with the cliffhanger, but it felt like their focus was more on building hype to continue the story more than actually wrapping up this one. Also, after the final boss, there's basically just a cutscene, then you're done. And the final boss took a lot of tries to beat. A reason for that is that the game auto-saved when I had no health or bullets because I accidentally entered the boss room first. Remember when I said the exploration was confusing? I eventually had to go back 2 saves because it was unbearable. So I really didn't have time to breathe between finally beating the boss and the game ending. I just really wish that there was some transition to immerse me back into the story a bit before the end. So all in all, I did enjoy my time with this game, and I would buy a sequel. Also, Dead Space has been an interest of mine, but I've never gotten around to playing it. This definitely boosted it up in my list. This is a really cool free game, but it isn't really a game, available for those who have VR headsets. While I only played it one time and probably won't ever again, it was super interesting to mess around in for a few minutes, and a great thing to show to anyone who may just want to check out your headset. This game is so cool. You motion sick folk probably can skip this one, but this is a really fun flying experience in VR. I mainly liked not focusing on the objective and just soaring around, but there are levels for you if you want a task. This is a really cool VR game that I feel like no one really talks about. It's sort of like if Super Hot was an auto-scroller put to techno music. A really fun, tiring game. This involves full body movements with ducking and side-to-side stepping. The gunplay feels good, and the difficulty is an exciting challenge. This one's definitely a go-to when I want to play VR. In this fast-paced simulation strategy game, you play as a serial killer trying to get some sleep. You have to kill everyone in the room in order to complete the level. This game actually was going to be part of my Halloween series this year, but it ended up being very difficult to commentate. That doesn't count against my rating at all, but I just wanted to mention that I plan on making a video about it, but it just didn't work out. It's very similar to the Infectionator series, which I really love. and I probably would prefer Infectionator over this game, but I still had a fun time. Levels do go on for a little bit, so if you fail, you have to redo the whole thing, which kind of gets annoying. Again, I made a full video on this demo, and you can look at that for all my thoughts and first impressions, but this game really looks cool. It's so pretty, it feels unique, and I love the Nordic Folklore Foundation. Just being a demo, this review is more about what expectations they set up for the full game, and I'm excited for it. I love all the games that Supermassive makes in this style, but I'm really happy that they went back to their roots and made a game more similar to Until Dawn. The larger cast allowed for more risky gameplay and intense moments, not to mention the characters were very likable. I feel like in the Dark Picture Anthology, 1 out of 5 of the characters are always extremely obnoxious, and while Emma is very unlikable in this game, there being so many more characters making it less of a big deal. I did feel like that the skill checks were much easier than Until Dawn, and even some of the Dark Picture games. All my personal character deaths came from making an active decision instead of messing up. While I'm not necessarily crushed by this, the skill checks were just something that didn't cause any stress because I knew I could hit them all. With the pressure of making a mistake being gone, it felt a little lacking. A new thing that they tried is the tarot card system, which, if you aren't familiar with these games, they hide clues that allow you to look into possible futures that you may want to achieve or avoid. In this game, after finding as many tarot cards in the chapter as possible, you could only pick one to investigate further and see the message it's trying to deliver. I love this mechanic. The cryptic text that comes with each card makes you want to know more and caused a lot of difficult decisions. On top of that, some tarot hints were misleading and made you doubt your instincts. In my case, 2 out of 4 of my character deaths came from having too much trust in a tarot card, and I know if I never saw the hint, then I would have saved them. One thing that I did notice is, compared to the Dark Pictures Anthology, character turn lengths significantly varied. There were 5-minute turns and 2-hour turns, which made the game feel slow at times. While that didn't happen often, I just feel like Supermassive did a much better job in consistently switching characters in the Dark Picture series. Obviously, this is most significant if you're playing in co-op mode, but I think that's the best way to play these games. The story of the game is really good, but I think that they revealed too much too soon. The hunters seem very trustworthy very early on, but the game prevented you from choosing a path where you could work with them. So at times I was annoyed because I had to fight or run away from people that I wanted to work with. I feel like they should have made them more sketchy or give you the option to collaborate. I also think the whole werewolf twist was really obvious right off the bat. There were a few loose ends and unaddressed moments that didn't quite make sense. Compared to the other games, the world building of this one was sloppy. Also, minor complaint, I was a little bit disappointed that these couples weren't ever an option. My final complaint is that it's extremely difficult to go back and make different choices after beating the game. There were a lot of paths where I was curious to see what happened if you made a different decision, but there's no easy way to do that. I understand that you can't skip around chapters because changing an early chapter could significantly affect the future chapters, but making the easiest option be restart the game is very annoying. If you want to replay a chapter, the save deletes everything from that point until the end of the game, so if you want to redo something early in the game, you pretty much lose your entire save. I really wish they would just let you make a copy of your save so you can mess around at individual chapters but still have a clean copy of your original playthrough. Normally I play through the Dark Picture games a second time and try to save everyone, and since they're much shorter, it isn't that bad, especially since they have the curator's cut that allows you to replay the story but from a different point of view, allowing you to redo decisions but not identically repeat what you just did. But thinking of all the cutscenes and flashbacks in this game really makes me wish that there was an easier way to see different outcomes other than just looking them up on YouTube. Before I get started, I just want to mention that I'm mainly going to focus on Shadows of Rose, but also want to give some brief relevant thoughts on Resident Evil Village. I really love the Winter family. I think that each member is extremely interesting, and I love following their stories in Resident Evil 7 and 8. As mentioned in my gameplay, Rose was a character I fell in love with just after the ending cutscene of Village. So I was super excited to explore her story further in Shadows of Rose, but this game really made me appreciate Ethan so much more as a character. The final 2 cutscenes that you get with him are probably the best parts of the game for me. Throughout the Resident Evil games, you play as these badass soldiers who still have feelings, but you know that they have some level of experience in this field. Ethan, on the other hand, is just a husband and father who got dragged into a bad situation. He goes through so much, and I really felt connected to him through this DLC, even if it was through Rose's perspective. This DLC definitely solidified Ethan as one of my favorite Resident Evil characters, and made me excited to see more from Rose. I know there was an announcement saying that this was the conclusion of the Winter story, but I'm hoping that isn't actually true. I'm completely fine if Rose isn't the focus of Resident Evil 9. In fact, I'm assuming Chris is going to be who you play as, and it'll be set right after Village when you fly to the BSAA headquarters, but I'm not ready to let the winters go yet. I especially want more closure from Mia. I know that a lot of people don't like her, but I find her really interesting. We get some glimpses into her relationship with Rose through how the mannequin is portrayed, but I need some more details on what her state in the real world is. She's been through a lot, and I think that there are several directions that they could take her and how she coped with the events of Louisiana and Romania. Okay, sorry for the side tangent, but back to the actual DLC, I just wanted to address some common complaints. I know some people were angry that so much of Shadows of Rose felt recycled from Village, but I really didn't have a problem with it. It makes sense that she goes back to where the Megamai seat was, and I feel like her powers make it feel different enough to not just feel like you're playing a reskin of Village. That at least is my view, but I played Village a year and a half ago, so maybe I don't remember everything. Also, remember that this is a DLC of Village, so it's an expansion of the game that you already played. There were a lot of new things added, so I think that recycled environments can slide. I also know that some people thought that Village was worse than 7 because they had so much more horror in 7 and not a ton in 8, but I do think that the DLC definitely leaned back into horror and partially made up for Village's shortcomings. Biohazard still definitely is scarier, but I appreciate them trying to bring some scary elements to the table. Some problems that I had with the DLC definitely was it being extremely obvious that Michael was Ethan. I don't think their goal was to make it a big twist, but it would have been cool if it was more of a surprise. On the other hand though, being 99% sure that Ethan is talking to Rose for the first time does let you appreciate the dialogue more. The other slight issue I had was connecting with Rose's hatred for her powers. We get more insight during the doll section, but she complained all the time about these powers, but as a player I can't really understand her struggle. I wish I got a little bit more insight into how her powers make her life so miserable at the very beginning. A side note, I just want to mention that Mercenaries is really fun. I didn't think I'd like it since I don't gravitate towards that style of challenge, but I really liked it and I beat every level. I did not play the main story in third person. While I enjoy Resident Evil in third person, I did think that Ethan's story in first person does fit. So I just want to mention that this review doesn't really include that aspect of the DLC. This is a really cute anti-horror game where you play as a slasher and have to complete mini puzzles to move on to the next level. This is a short, fun, and free game that I recommend you try out. The full game happened to come out 13 days after I made my gameplay, and I'm definitely not salty about that, but there are some levels that came out that I haven't played yet. Stress is the best word to describe this game. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of this game, you're stuck on a ship with one of 3 possible monsters, there are 3 different ways to escape, and you need to find the necessary tools to get out. The ship layout is also procedurally generated, along with items being in different places each time. Finally, the game is permadeath, so if you're caught, it's over. All these elements combined allow for a unique experience each time you load in. The game itself is very difficult, which may be a pro or con depending on what you're looking for. On the one hand, a game that's difficult to beat may be frustrating, but that also means that even if you do beat it, you aren't an expert, and there's still a lot of replay value. Something I learned about myself playing all these horror games this year is that I may be really desensitized to horror. Monstrum isn't an exception to the fact that I didn't find it scary, but it induced so much stress. The permadeath mixed with the RNG of the game makes it so that when you start to make some progress, messing up becomes such a huge worry since you can't necessarily retry and get back to the point that you were at. And I have this feeling with lots of games, not wanting to lose my progress, but this game is next level. If you go to my gameplay, you can hear the pure anxiety and adrenaline this game caused me during my final run. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I haven't played any other game that did what Monstrum did to me, and I really want to give it huge props for that. This is a fantastic zombie game where you have to complete mini-campaigns set in different countries. Your team of 4 needs to go against hundreds of zombies at a time, resulting in non-stop high-energy gameplay. The campaign can be played offline with AI teammates, online with random people but the servers are dead, or online with friends. I played the entire game offline and really enjoyed it. The computer teammates do carry their weight, but they do start to fall off in higher difficulty modes. Speaking of which, there are 5 different difficulties, which I find all very fun. If you want more mindless shoot-'em-up game, then easy is fun and doesn't feel too easy. You still need to fight swarms, but you don't really need to worry about your health that much. Then if you want a harder challenge, you can move up in difficulty, and if you really want to push your limits, you can go even further. I can tell that this game probably is more fun with friends, but I had a great time alone. I definitely want to check out the sequel sometime. As mentioned earlier, I'm a huge fan of the Dark Pictures Anthology, and I think that this is a really strong addition to the series. I was really hyped for the Saw theme and think that they built a great world and pretty environment. I know I've said that for like half the games, but it's it's all true. But something that I did notice is that I really didn't connect with any of the characters. I liked some characters, but didn't feel as close to the cast as I did with the other games. The best part of this game are the death game situations. Something I was really hoping for was a time puzzle and them going all in on the Saw vibes. Unfortunately, they were just decisions and not trying to be like a full-on escape room. I understand that it might be too difficult to execute, but I wish there were more stressful time-sensitive parts. I also think that with the 5-person cast, I've noticed that there aren't actually a ton of times where the characters can die. Unlike Until Dawn, where everyone can drop dead at any moment, someone has to get to the climax of the story, so there can't be too many traps. But overall, I had a great time with this. I haven't played the Character's Cut yet, but I'm very excited to. And I am so hyped for the space one. You have no idea. I've been wanting space for years, and I am just, so excited. Now I want to wrap up this video with some mini game awards that I came up with, just to give some highlights of the year. First, I want to give the Appreciation Award, which is just not the best game, but one that I want to give some extra attention to. And that goes to Shadows of Rose. Again, I really think that this was a beautiful send-off for Ethan, and I think that this really did neatly tie up the Winter story if they decide to end it here. Again, I'm hoping that they don't, but it really, really made me appreciate Ethan so much, and I really think that as I sat with this game a few days after, I loved it more and more each day. The Biggest Letdown Award, pretty self-explanatory. I had high expectations and low results. That's gonna go to the Outlast Trials beta. The game itself is very meh, but for it coming from Outlast, which people say is the scariest horror game of all time, it really was disappointing that they clearly have proven that they can do this, and I feel like it was a letdown. And I don't know if that's because the multiplayer medium just doesn't work, since most of their things are like sequence jump scares, but I really think that they can do better, and I hope that they do before the main game comes out, because I don't want the game to fail, but right now I was just really disappointed. Next is the Dark Horse Award, a game that I didn't have much expectations for, and it really surprised me in a pleasant way. That's gonna go to Monstrum. I didn't think much of this. I thought it was gonna be an okay horror game, and it really went over the top in such a fantastic way, and I can't emphasize enough that Monstrum has made me feel emotions that I have never felt before playing a game. And for being as old as it is, I really want to give extra props to it for doing such an amazing job. The next award is I Wish I Played This, which is just a game that came out this year that I never got around to playing but really wanted to, and this award goes to Stray. I still am avoiding everything about it since I want to play it, but it seemed really cool, unique concept, unique gameplay, and again, I don't have much to say since I'm avoiding stuff about it, but I think it looked really cool. Then finally, my most anticipated game next year. That's going to be Hogwarts Legacy, and it's funny because actually last year I said that Breath of the Wild was my most anticipated game, but I feel like my hype has kind of died for that. Not that I think it's going to be amazing, but I really do think that enough time has passed that my hype has kind of gone down. And when it gets closer to releasing, I think that hype's going to build back up. But right now, it's just been so much time that I don't really care about it because I haven't thought about it. And Hogwarts Legacy just looks incredible. I know there's some controversy around Harry Potter, but they have been pretty clear that they're not associated with J.K. Rowling. Yeah, I think it's really going to be an amazing game, and I'm hoping that it is, and I'm gonna get the 2 days early thing to make a video on it, so I'm hoping that, you know, buying it extra early isn't gonna bring bugs. But yeah, I think it's gonna be super cool. I hope that you enjoyed this. I know that I didn't play a lot of mainstream games that came out this year. The new games that I played were basically just horror, but I do like most kinds of games. If there are any games that you want me to play next year, whether you want it for a video or just recommend it, doesn't matter how old they are, let me know and I'll check them out. So thank you for watching. This is the last video of the year, and I will see you January 1st for my 2022 reflection. Bye-bye.
You know, that's just my opinion. Everybody got an opinion. Everybody got something to say. Everybody